your tea. Sure, you must be parched.
You're not to touch that teapot, do you hear me? We're going on 40 years now. I've been through all this, you and that bloody teapot, and I know what's going to happen, so don't touch it.
Ah, go along out of that.
I'm warning you.
Ah, Jesus, Mary, Joseph.
That's hot.
Ah, that handle must be hollow. Would you say that's what it was, son? Would you say the handle was hollow?
Please leave me alone. You're dead. You're in Dean's Grange in a box 6 feet under with her. I carried you. It's over. You're gone. So get out of my head.
Oh, big God, son, you're getting as gray as a badger.
He was right about you. Old Drum was right. The day he came here to give me the reference, do you know what he called you? The enemy.
Old Drum was not the worst of them.
Welcome back to Bay Area Psychology. Tonight, we turn our focus to fatherhood in the 90s. Has it changed? In her book, The Men in Our Lives, Elizabeth Fishel makes the statement that the most striking fact about father was, of course, his absence. For many of us, fathers were gone all day working. Where or at what was sometimes a mystery. She goes on to say that the fathers of early memory were often absent, hidden behind newspapers, books, or even television, not to be disturbed from their important thoughts and well-earned rest. We can contrast this, of course, with the fathers of television. Father Knows Best, My Three Sons, Leave It to Beaver. They were wise, accessible, good-humored, and perfect. So who was and is this real live man we call father? To help us learn about this man, I have invited Stephen Buckley, the father raising my treasured niece Rachel, because to me he represents the best of 90s fatherhood. I have also asked Len DiPaolo to return to our show again to contribute his experience as both a marriage and family counselor and as a father. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Nice
very
to be
much
here,
for
man.
being with us tonight. As I mentioned, I did have a question I wanted to begin with, which was to mention that in the fall of 1995, the Mercury News did run, I think it was a 3-part series on fatherhood. And there was a statement made that statistically, kids without a dad or a strong male figure in their lives are often likely to be unhappy or lead a troubled life. And as I read that, I began to talk to other professionals and ask about why this could be. And most of them said they had no idea. They didn't know why dads were important, but they knew that they were. So I thought I'd open by asking you, just for some input, what's your first hit about, why is it that statistics would reflect a need for dads?
I would say the first thing that comes to my mind is that generally as we grow up, we tend to do what our parents have done, to follow our parents' behavior, to follow the role modeling. So if someone's not there, if someone is absent, or if someone has some form of behavior that doesn't work, then there's a likelihood that the individual might follow that, or that we might follow that as we grow up. I think the influences of watching what's going on in the house are so strong, or what's not going on in the house if someone's not there, that that is the first thing that came to my mind as far as whether a father, how a father would be effective.
So there would be a void. If I don't have anything to follow, that I'm kind of left to my own childlike devices to figure out what a man will be or what a dad would be. What do you think, Steve?
Well, I was thinking that a father does model with his wife interpersonal relationships. But I was also thinking that it's just a question of time as well. They have two perspectives, not just mom or not just dad, but two perspectives on life and more time to deal with children. I mean, for us, both my wife and I work, and when we come home, it's a big rat race. Yeah. And if it were just one person, I don't know how single people do it with a child. Rachel will say, "Play with me," and if I have to cook dinner, if Linda's going out to a meeting or something at night, there's no time for play. There's no time for anything except business. Okay. And all the kind of the low-level business too. And so I think just having a father in the house actually gives both parents time to just be with their children.
Okay. So then maybe move out of just caretaking, but actually interaction and relationship.
Right.
Now, were both of you raised with your fathers?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Yes,
so
you
you had an experience of being raised in a household where there was a man available.
Yes.
Okay, and do you think that's been important to you as fathers at this point in your life?
Well, yes, as a positive and a negative example. I mean, my father was not around a lot. He worked at night, so he was sleeping during the day, but he was there I mean, I get my mechanical ability and so forth from my father, and things of that nature. He could show me how to do some of the traditional male sorts of things.
Okay. And yes, and I know actually you do them quite well.
Thank you.
Yeah, he does. How about you?
Well, as my wife would attest, I didn't learn much mechanical ability from my father, but and as the rest of the people know me. But he was present in the home, and actually I haven't even thought of this, but the actual presence of him and being who he was in the home is something that I do. I don't think a lot of the times about what I'm doing. I try to just be present and try to be whatever I am and try to do what I feel needs to be done, both in the relationship with my wife and with the kids. But the presence, the actual being there, the priority of that in life is the main thing that I see as the important part. It's top priority.
Yeah, and and apparently it normalized it for you that, of course, you would participate in the household. Now, you know, one of our opening clip is a scene taken from a movie called Da. And one of the things that it illustrates is the ambivalence sometimes between fathers and sons, and fathers and their children. Where on the one hand, and you mentioned this, you know, I think we need that presence and we need the modeling. And there's the other side where we grow up and maybe we want to do things a little differently than our dads did. And at some point, your children, of course, will grow up, and Rachel will probably pick a man who has some of your traits and some not. I know your sons may be the kind of dad you are, and they may choose to do some things differently.
Probably differently.
Probably differently.
I'm getting ready for differently.
Okay.
I keep telling my wife that I'd like to give Rachel a different set of problems, rather than my set. Because there's things that, of course, my folks, I see that they did poorly and things that they did well, and every time I catch myself doing one of their poor behaviors, because that's the one I learned, I could kick myself. Yeah. And so sometimes I'm able to compensate for those, but you know, other times not. Yeah.
Well, and like you mentioned, I meing, the fathering you grew up with and the parenting we grow up with is so automatic. I mean, it's just, that's the thing that comes up probably when we're the most tired or we're most stressed. We don't know what to do. There's that automatic pilot we flip into. Let's take a look at some of the characteristics I gleaned from this Mercury News series about reasons maybe that we do need our dads. Let's take a look. Well, the first that was mentioned is that fathers are not second mommies, but have a unique way of being with their children. That little boys whose fathers actively participate in their upbringing develop a greater sense of empathy, which I thought was an interesting statement, and that father's influence can encourage independence and risk-taking. Let's take a look at the first one in terms of not being second mommies. I mean, do you ever feel pressure maybe sometimes to emulate the way your wives are with your children?
Not particularly. Emulate. I learned from my wife. My wife has a different, it's true, it's a different way of behaving, and my wife will occasionally say, you could do this way, and sure enough it will work. Or there's other things that I have strengths in as well, so I'm not a second mommy. So
you're not really just kind of the second string substitute when mom's not available? Because I've heard dads say this to me. They feel like they're just sort of the fill-in, almost like the babysitter. And the real person in charge with the children, it tends to be the wife.
Yeah, I would think that would not be the way that I would want to do it. That was the main thing I didn't want to do, is to be a fill-in, to, quote, help my wife. Right. Whereas we're both doing parenting, and I would agree with Steve as far as that she would have some ways of doing things which, over the years, I think we're trying to respect more each other's way of doing something, not that my way is the only way. And if you do that, I think you understand that there is more than one way. And that's, not that it's always real pleasant to understand that there is more than one way, but the more that the person brings what they are into the parenting, the better it is.
Well, yeah, the better the mix. What is it you wanted to say?
I was going to say, with my daughter Rachel, we have a joke. Sometimes she takes it well, sometimes she doesn't like it. She'll be wanting something out of my wife, and I'll say, well, I'm sorry, today we changed jobs, I'm the mommy. And I will be doing this for you whether you like it or not. And sometimes she thinks that's very funny, and other times it's like, no, give me mommy. Yeah.
Well, and I'm sure that there are, probably based on natural talents and abilities, divisions with parenting that happen. Things that maybe you're better at, or just instinctively that seem to occur in parenting that that work may be better for you than maybe for your wife or for
Yeah,
Linda?
I think that there's natural things that each person does differently and that I do differently. And there might even be some more traditional things that fathers or mothers do. There may be something to that. I like the idea of not being a second mommy and both being a parent. And because I think then second mommy, and how much pressure does that put on the parent, the other parent,
Yeah.
the wife, to be the parent? And I agree around single parenting. I have no idea how someone can do that. And double parenting, or our regular parenting, is challenging enough, is tough enough, even with all the information we have
Sure.
and all the more awareness around it, around how important it is and the fact that we're talking about it.
Yeah.
It's more important today than it used to be. And
Well, yeah, we've moved away from, I think, that, you know, your job was to go out and bring home the paycheck, and for that you get to rest and not be bothered. You know, that was kind of that old man's home is his castle thing, which is I come in and I'm taken care of, and I don't really need to be bothered with the rest of that. And I think that's really shifted. And I know I've talked to fathers where there's pressure with that, because they're sort of like, well, I don't know what to do now then. You know, I mean, I don't want to parent just like my wife, but then I'm not sure what else to do. What do you think about this empathy statement? I know we have about a minute before the break, but I'm curious, why do you think little boys would learn empathy having a dad?
I think they would learn empathy because they see interpersonal relationships. They see husbands and wives working things out.
Okay.
And you know, with a child, it's very easy to be imperious and just say, this is the way it'll be, this is my directive.
Yeah.
But with two parents working things out, I mean, you know, you just don't tell your wife where to go and where to sit. That doesn't go over. And so things have to be worked out. And I think the children that see parents working things out have a good opportunity to understand that there's two sides. It's cooperation that gets things done.
Okay. And yeah, and the fact that I would imagine that you also get to see your dad have feelings. I mean, get to see, you know, what does a man do when he's feeling?
or what does this man do?
What does this particular
I think they would
man
learn
do?
empathy by watching a lot of feelings that aren't necessarily empathetic. They would see a lot of harsher feelings.
Okay.
And maybe we're learning about that too.
Okay.
So.
Let's take a quick break. I want you to stay tuned. When we return, we'll learn more about parenting and particularly fathering in the 90s.